it's a self-awareness enables cultural sensitivities. Yeah, we need to understand what the other person triggers are, what the other country's triggers are, and try to avoid that discussion. Right? If they are very, very sensitive towards certain things, we should avoid those and make sure that we don't rub them the wrong way. Yeah, empathy bridges cultural gaps. So, for example, when I started working in a Dutch company way back in 2004, Dutch people are very direct. Yeah, I mean, I learned the long way, and I thought they were very rude in the beginning. They would say things directly to us, and we are not used to that. We are more, fortunately, we are more British. We will kind of, be a little bit more, not direct. And that way, it took me a couple of years to figure out that they're not rude. That's the way the culture is, and it's a good culture because you say what you feel, and it's not emotionally aligned. They're just saying it matter of fact, and you pick it up and you work on it, right? And next day they're back to their normal sense. So it's very important to understand how people work. How should you be direct, should you be indirect, what are the best way to speak to them, what could be the best way to communicate, should it be a mail, should it be a call, should it be a flowery mail, should it be a direct mail, how do you communicate, how often do you communicate, and the language that you use in communication is also very, very critical. Then we talk about emotional regulation supports intercultural harmony. What do you mean by regulation? How do you handle that situation? How do you regulate your emotions will actually decide the next course of action. Yeah, so you are in a difficult situation, the salary is not getting increased, and you've been working very, very hard, the company is not growing, and there's a discussion which is a heated discussion. How do you manage your emotions? Yeah, and how do you really create harmony and make sense out of it is very, very important, right? And work obviously will get done once we are at the base level of emotion, not with heightened emotions at any point in time. And cultural adaptability also makes is rooted in emotional flexibility. I need to be flexible, I can't be rigid. Even if I'm the managing director of a company which is running let's say a factory in Germany, I cannot be rigid. I have to listen to people. That's the way the culture is. I cannot, it can't, it's not a higher fire kind of a thing. It's not that I'm the leader and whatever I say is true. That's not the culture there. They would like to be a contributory thing. They would like to listen to people, take their inputs and then probably take a decision rather than saying it's a top down approach, everybody has to follow. It works in an Indian environment maybe earlier, not now anyway, but it might not work in any other environment. So how do you adapt, yeah, to different cultures? Knowing the cultural nuances is very, very critical. What works in China might not work in Australia, might not work in Saudi Arabia, might not work in US, right? So, and some things will work. So how do you make sure that what works and what doesn't work, what kind of knowledge you should do, is very critical, and we're going to talk a little bit around that as we go. But there are five more points I want to stress before I hand it over. Conflict resolution, one of the very, very critical things, and today people who are able to manage this conflict resolution are top leaders, and are really looked after in organization, because in case of any conflict, if we are logical and create a, I would say, binding agreement between two parties, I think that's a great solution people can come with. These are problem solvers, and problem solvers are rare these days. So how do I resolve a conflict? First of all, understand why it's arising. What's the root cause? Yeah, is it because something that we wrote? Is it because something that we did? Is it because they don't do it this way? What is the reason? And once you know the reason, obviously then. But if you look at 30,000 feet, yeah, they didn't agree to your agreement and they rejected the agreement. That's not the case. Go a little bit deeper to understand why the agreement was rejected. Why am I not getting this proposal approved, and what could be the reasons? And once you go deeper, you'll realize it could be a very, I would say, shallow reason, and you can easily would have avoided it had we known this earlier. Listening is very important. How you listen, how you react, how do you show active listening is important, right? Sometimes people take notes from their laptop, and people get offended saying, no, you should, in a meeting you should not be working on your laptop. You're not working, you're taking notes, but in that culture it's saying, no, that's not okay, you should take it in a paper. Yeah, we are in the AI world, but there are some cultures where still want you to respect the speaker and not be working on a laptop and have an eye contact with them. So, yeah, and there are other cultures which don't have a problem at all, where you're working on iPads or laptops or or whatever, or mobiles. You're typing on the mobile on note form. So it depends on, again, the cultural alignment. Trust building across cultures through emotional intelligence. Again, I'm trying to understand, how do I build trust in a new cultural environment where I am going. I want to be accepted. I want to be, be successful in that culture. I want to work with these people. How do I make sure that it does? And team synergy in global environment, because if I'm working, the team can do much more than an individual, right? So how do I make sure that the whole team is aligned? And a lot of work has happened on individual performance and team performance, right? You have EQ for self and you have EQ for teams. You have culture for self, you have culture for teams, right? You need to make sure that the team, which is a diverse team across, across cultures and across regions, how do they work with each other? And last but not the least is the motivation drives cultural curiosity and inclusion. You should be willing to learn new things. You should be willing to learn about their culture. I feel very excited when somebody comes to India and at least tries to learn some words before they come. It could be ridiculous. I would say pronunciation, acha hai, and theek hai, all that. But at least we appreciate that taking the time off to learn a language. And the same goes for you. If you're going to Germany for a longer project or even for a shorter project, and you are curious to learn the language, they appreciate that. Even if what you're saying is not factually correct or syntactically correct, but at least you were curious, you learned, you're trying to give the respect to that language by learning, and you're trying to be part. So it's more inclusive. People like you to be involved in their country, in their culture, use the language, use the dress, use some of the good things about that culture, and then it works together. So in a short period of time, I'm able to give this information to you. As I said, there are four big boxes on emotional intelligence: the self part, yeah, as well as the outside the self part, which is the how do you know about the others and how do you manage them, how do you know about yourself and how do you manage that. If you're able to build these four boxes, your internal satisfaction, external satisfaction, the way you bring out the best in you and the best in others would be much, much, much higher, and your relationship would be much higher. The amount of quality of work that gets done would be much higher within the teams and across the teams, across the cultures as well. So, with that, I like you to hand over to Vidya. Vidya Subramaniam is a very, very